In 2008, the Russians welded a metal cap over the deepest man-made hole ever punched into the surface of the Earth. It goes down 12,262 meters. Flip Mount Everest upside down and drop it in there, the summit would still be more than a kilometer short of the bottom. Some people say they heard screaming from down there. That's why they sealed it shut. Some people say they drilled straight through the roof of hell. The truth is stranger than any of it. The 24th of May 1970. The Kola Peninsula, in the Soviet Union. The Cold War was never just about the sky. Space was one direction, the other was straight down. The Americans struck first. In 1961, the United States launched Project Mohole, an attempt to drill through the crust and reach the mantle. They chose the floor of the Pacific Ocean because oceanic crust is far thinner than continental crust and, in theory, easier to punch through. But deep-sea drilling turned out to be a nightmare of engineering. Congress cut the budget, and by 1966, the project was dead. The Soviets tried a different angle. The ocean floor was too thin but too treacherous to work on. So they went for solid land. The Kola Peninsula, part of the Baltic Shield, one of the oldest exposed slabs of rock on the planet. There, the crust is relatively intact, relatively thin in theory. The easiest place on land to drill all the way through to the mantle. Target: 15,000 meters. They didn't just dig a hole. They built an entire town around it. Zapolyarny. Hundreds of engineers, geologists, and their families moved in, with a single job: to push the drill bit toward the center of the Earth. This was no single iron rod shoved downward. Each section of drill pipe is only about 10 meters long. You need over 1,000 sections stacked together to reach a depth of 10 kilometers. At that depth, the pressure, the temperature, the friction are enough to bend steel out of shape. Every joint you make up, every bit you change, it's an engineering operation, precise to the millimeter. By 1984, they'd reached 12,066 meters. Then things went wrong. The hole got badly jammed, and they had to sidetrack re-drilling all the way from 7,000 meters. In 1989, they finally made it to 12,262 meters, the deepest penetration a human being has ever achieved, and then they stopped. Not because they'd reached hell, because the temperature down there was far beyond anything anyone had predicted. Before the Kola borehole, geologists' understanding of the deep crust came mostly from one tool: seismic waves. Seismic waves travel at different speeds through rocks of different density. From that, scientists inferred the crust has two layers. Up top, granite, lower density. Below it, basalt, higher density. Between them, a distinct boundary. They called it the Conrad discontinuity. That model ruled geology for decades, but nobody could test it because nobody had ever actually pulled up rock samples from that depth. The Kola borehole was the first real test. The drill bit passed right through where the Conrad discontinuity was supposed to be. No basalt, nothing changed at all. The granite just kept going. The change in seismic wave velocity was probably not a switch in rock type at all, but simply the same rock changing its physical properties under different temperature and pressure. Same observations, two competing explanations, and the physical evidence killed the first one. It was a conclusion that rocked the geological world, a crustal model built on decades of seismic inference, proven wrong by the very first physical samples. But that wasn't the most mind-bending discovery. 6 kilometers down, the rock turned out not to be dry. It was saturated with water, not rivers or lakes, but water sealed inside fractures, existing as chemically bound water and free fluids under enormous heat and pressure. That demolished the long-standing assumption that the deep crust was a dry, sterile place. And there was something even more unexpected. In the cores pulled from 6 to 12 kilometers, they found microfossils, the remains of single-celled plankton, which means those ancient sedimentary rocks were once the floor of an ocean billions of years ago. As plate tectonics reshaped the planet, they got buried deep into the crust, crushed under heat and pressure far beyond anything life was supposed to survive. Yet life, it seems, never fully gave up. Follow-up research into the deep biosphere showed that even at the depths the Kola borehole reached, microbes were still leaving their mark. They don't survive on sunlight and oxygen. They pull energy from chemical redox reactions in the rock itself, chemosynthesis, not photosynthesis. Life that needs no sun at all. Their existence redrew the bottom edge of what we call the biosphere. This is not science fiction. This is the most unexpected legacy the Kola borehole left to biology. By 12,262 meters, the temperature underground had hit roughly 180 degrees Celsius, nearly double what scientists had predicted. Note, this temperature figure is widely cited popular science data. The exact value may vary depending on measurement method and literature source, and should be verified against the original reports. That isn't a minor inconvenience. The heat warped the alloys of the drill bit. It twisted the drill pipe under the combined weight and thermal expansion, and it robbed the drilling mud the fluid that cools the bit, carries away rock cuttings, and holds the borehole walls steady of its function under extreme conditions. Every meter you went deeper, the cost and the difficulty climbed exponentially. At that temperature gradient, the 15,000-meter target was essentially unreachable. In the early 1990s, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the money ran out. The project limped on in name for a few more years, but the drilling had effectively stopped. The scientific team shrank, the equipment aged, and the people began to drift away from Zapolyarny. In 2008, the whole facility was formally abandoned. The mouth of the hole was sealed with welded metal. That super engineering monument to Soviet ambition closed with a metal cap. They capped it, not because something that shouldn't exist was down there, because it had done its job and hit the technical limits of its era. Around 1989, right as the Kola borehole was making headlines, a story started spreading through the Western world that the Soviets had drilled their way into hell. According to the tale, they lowered a heat-resistant microphone down the hole and picked up the screams of millions of souls. The drill bit broke through a rock layer into a vast cavity. The temperature spiked to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and a jet of scalding gas shot up out of the ground, reeking of sulfur. The story was later traced back to a fabrication of fictional report, picked up by tabloids, then blasted across the early internet until it hardened into a durable urban legend. Note, there are multiple versions of how and where the well-to-hell rumor originated and spread. The exact first source still needs further verification, but it spread because it tapped into something very old. From Dante's Divine Comedy to the underworld myths of countless cultures, down has always been the direction of fear, darkness, enclosure, the unknown, punishment. The underground carried an enormous weight of cultural baggage, and what the Kola borehole actually told us is the exact opposite. The underground is not an empty, burning pit. It's a geological world structured, storied, even alive. It has its own temperature gradient, its own hydrological system, its own microbial communities. It's not hell. It's more complex than hell. Those microbes that may still cling to life at 180 degrees Celsius, they hint that life's resilience is far greater than we ever thought possible. If life can take hold in rock fractures 12 kilometers under the surface of our planet, then what about beneath the crust of Mars? In the ocean hidden under Europa's ice? In the plumes of water vapor blasting off Enceladus? The Kola borehole didn't find hell, but it gave the search for alien life a new direction. Look deeper, 12.2 kilometers. The Kola super-deep borehole, a pinprick that humanity left in the skin of the Earth. It never reached the mantle, never stumbled onto hell, but it toppled a textbook hypothesis about the structure of the crust, proved that water hides in the deep rock, and by accident, cracked open the door to the deep biosphere. In 2008, when they welded that metal cap shut, what got sealed in wasn't a secret. It was a legacy of Cold War science and an underground world we still don't fully understand. Human feet have touched the moon. A drill bit has burrowed 12 kilometers into the Earth. Yet we still know less about the inside of our own planet than about the far side of the moon. The deepest hole in the world is sealed. But that question, what's actually down there, was never closed.